Invasive alien species are species that are introduced intentionally or unintentionally to a non-native environment outside of their own ecosystem. Many invasive species are introduced to new environments accidentally by humans. This usually occurs when a person has traveled to another country and they bring it back with them. According to the Journal of Ecological Economics, about 50,000 non-native species have invaded the United States. The water hyacinth is an invasive species that negatively affects its environment. This Brazil native species invaded Lake Victoria in Africa and caused obstructions in waterways, lowered the reproduction of fish, and spread disease. A specific species of honeybees from Europe was brought over intentionally to North America because it was helpful to farmers. These honeybees were used to help pollinate crops in areas without many pollinators. Invasive alien species can have either positive or negative effects on their new environments.
The presence of invasive alien species can have multiple effects on the environment. Many of these can have a rather costly outcome for the U.S. The invasive species result in an alteration of good. In relation to crop yield, invasive alien species cost the U.S. anywhere from $128 to $131 billion annually. Invasive species can change the flow of water. This caused the loss of $26.3 to $67.8 million worth of water that would have otherwise been used for irrigation, drinking, or hydropower. An example of this is the yellow star thistle, which depletes the soil moisture, which cost Sacramento $16 to $75 million a year in water loss. Recreation and tourism is also affected. Invasive alien species change both land and water-based recreation. There's not one total cost that can be placed with recreation, but one example is the red imported fire ants. The red fire ants cost billions of dollars in medical treatment for stings, damage to electrical equipment, and crop loss across many southern states in the United States. In South Africa, introduced trees have provided things like fuel and building supplies, but it also has left 30% less water downstream. So this shows that Africa is in the trade-offs, and if you look at the chart, there's more things that show that. In Greater Lakes, zebra mussels have shown great potentials, but by accidentally introducing them, it has led to unanticipated effects like clogging tanks and toxins being in the fish that we eat. And this leads to them being a trade-off. In Hawaii, feral pigs have shown many things in the community as meat, culture, and religious factors, but when they ransack food and uproot plants, they show synergies and trade-offs. And then if you look at all of the charts, it can show more.
On this slide, I'm going to be talking about how to control invasive species. And it's actually very difficult to control invasive species, so it's best to prevent them. And one prevention method that has been implemented is regulation on global trade and travel, since it is a huge way IAS invade new ecosystems by bringing them on from vacations and being in packages that are brought between countries. However, the system is flawed, and we need tighter inspection systems at borders that will identify IAS more effectively. To do this, the people need to come together to put pressure on the government for the implementation of better regulations. And very quickly, some of the other prevention methods are stopping the sale of IAS at nurseries, using intensive and long-term monitoring of IAS, economic incentives and disincentives, and investing in the education about the impact of IAS.
To conclude, I'm going to be speaking about some of the invasive species found in Kentucky. Pictured above and to the right is a tree called the Tree of Heaven. It is native to China and was brought over to Kentucky in the late 1700s. The Tree of Heaven is a competitor with many native species and is very detrimental to Kentucky's ecology. Pictured below and to the left is a plant called garlic mustard. The picture below shows the growth of garlic mustard after only 2 years. It was introduced in the 1860s and, much like the Tree of Heaven, is a main competitor for sunlight and nutrients, and is also detrimental to native species of Kentucky. So what is next in terms of IAS? With the realization that IAS is just as detrimental to our world's ecology and biodiversity as climate change and habitat loss, it is important that we recognize that natural disasters and extinction of endangered species can be contributed to IAS. The community and society should be informed on how not only IAS impacts the larger world, but how it also impacts individuals. And we should also be educated on how we can prevent and control IAS in the future.